Our other guest in the studio tonight is someone that we've asked to be with us, and we're going to introduce him in just a minute. His name is Royal Lunsford, but before we introduce him, let me just share a couple words with you. And first of all, ask the question, as it relates to money, when is enough enough? Money is mentioned over 2,000 times in the Bible, so it's important to God how we use it. Money is a tool like anything just like it, and as with all talents and tools given by God, we should use it to glorify His name, further His kingdom. While money is not bad or evil, the love of money is both. Do we serve God or do we serve ourselves in our use of money? A good question, all of which comes from Him. What do you think? How much money is enough? So we're going to welcome to the mic this evening Royal Lunsford. Welcome, Laura.
Thank you, Pastor. Good to be here.
We have known each other for many a year.
Many years.
And we've seen some hills and valleys together. But one of the things that has concerned John and myself over the past, we've been studying the Old Testament, the injustices that are happening and how they roll into the New Testament times as today. And not only the use of money, but the abuse of money. When is enough enough?
You know, Pastor, that's a wonderful question. But the thing I first need to make note of is that we live in the United States of America. And we generally are segregated in our neighborhoods by people of similar socioeconomic backgrounds. This isn't always true. But as I look out the 12th story here and I see all the car lights and the big buildings and everything, the one thing that strikes me is money and the amount of money that is in circulation and is put to use here. And I've been following a particular ministry called Reaching the Unreached of Africa. And they're on the web. They have a Facebook post. And I've been following that because these are people who have almost no money. And they're going from village to village, preaching amongst the Muslims. And in fact, they've even been welcomed by Muslims because they don't read or write and they don't understand what they believe. And so these pastors are going out and they're preaching the gospel and they're converting people and they're sending illiterate men into other villages on foot, barefoot, in the bush to preach the gospel of the good news. And these are people that don't have clean water. And so I look around today, and I was watching the football game today, like most, and it was just full of invitations to buy. Selling, selling, selling. And so it then becomes that question, how much is enough? So we have to understand first that we're talking about enough here from plenty, from more than plenty. If you live in this country, you're in the top 10% of all people in the world. And so it's not really relevant for us to even discuss whether or not we have enough. We do, more than enough. We're overflowing, and we're unappreciative of that. When I look into the book of Matthew in the 6th and 7th chapters, I hear Jesus talking to his disciples. And he's telling them, give no thought for tomorrow, what you'll eat, what you'll drink, what clothing you'll put on your body. Your Father in heaven knows you need these things. And he says, seek ye first my kingdom and my righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. But instead, what we do, even in the church here in this country, is we seek more and more and more. I just told you about reaching Africa's unreached, where they are preaching and they don't have enough. The gentleman on his latest post said, yeah, our Land Rover broke down. And he said, I wound up standing on the top of it preaching the good news and handing out tracts to people that are mostly pictures. They had another missionary come in and take their pastors, who are these untrained men, and walk them through the Bible and its stories. And they were ecstatic because it was the first time they had a comprehensive understanding of the stories that the Bible tells, from Genesis to the book of John. And these are not synodically trained or educated men, but they're enthusiastic, and they're out there, and they're reaching thousands of unchurched people. I've heard it said that in Africa and Asia, the church is growing exponentially. And yet, I read time and again how we're losing people in this country. This is a mission field, right? But yet, we are so consumed with our own lives and with our own things, the cars we own, the house we live in, the clothes we wear. Do we have the right stuff? And right now, here we are fixing to celebrate the birth of our Savior. And what are we doing? We're running around, not me, but people are running around in malls and shopping online and spending more money than most people in the world will ever have in 1 year, only for Christmas. And sometimes just for a few gifts. There was a lady that posted something on Facebook today, and she was crying, and she was telling this story in her car outside of a grocery store. And she said she was going there to run some errands and pick up some stuff. And she saw this homeless man, who obviously homeless, and, sitting on a bench outside the store just trying to get, warm. And she thought, oh, I should do something for him. And as she walked in, she said she heard in her mind a voice that said, he likes bananas. And she said, okay, Lord, I'm going to get him some bananas. And then she thought, I could get him some fried chicken. And the Lord said, no, I didn't ask you to get him fried chicken. She thought, well, he needs some protein. So she went and got some canned meats and goods that he could put in his backpack and that could easily be opened for later use. And then as she stood in the checkout counter, she said, I really ought to get that chicken. The Lord said, no, but it's cold out and his lips are going to be chapped. And so there, next to the register was some chapstick. So she got several for him. And she walked out and she said, are you doing okay, sir? You're looking like you're kind of cold. He said, yeah. She said, well, I wanted to give you these bananas and a few other things. And about that time, another woman walked up behind him and said, oh, hey, I got you that fried chicken I promised you. And she wept. And she said, because you see, want and need are all around us. And there was no judgment, because I think that most of us realize, not everyone, some people have economic circumstances, but a large number of the truly homeless are mentally ill, or they're on street drugs of their choosing, or both. And so those people, God still worries about, and he loves them. And she said she was convicted in her heart as she counted up the money she spent for herself and her family. I have this Bible my father gave me. I cherish it. He wrote in the front for me. And I have a few other small items, but there was nothing I wanted. You see, their lives came down to just these very few things, except for that which they passed on to their children and grandchildren, the gospel. And so one of the things we all need to do is reevaluate. My wife and I have been doing that a lot lately. Who would really want this when we're gone? Nobody. It means very little to us. Pictures, things like this on the wall. I mean, how new of a car do you need? Most new cars today are built to last well over 100,000 miles, some even 200. Do you really need to get a new car every few years? What are you doing with that money? Couldn't that money better go to God's work? Where does it tell us in the Old Testament, I believe in the book of Micah, it says, where have you robbed me? You've robbed from me. Where, Lord, where have we robbed from you? Through your tithes and offerings. You've withheld from me. Open your hand, see if I will not pour out a blessing such you cannot contain it. And again, if we read Jesus' words in Matthew 6 and 7, it's not about getting the money to accumulate it, to have it, but to give it away. What did Jesus tell the young rich man when he came to him? And he said, what do I need to do, Lord? He said, do this, this, and this. He said, oh, Lord, all these things I've done for my youth. But Jesus knew that he was wealthy and looked at his heart and said, one thing you lack. Go, sell everything you have and give it to the poor, and then come follow me. And the man was sad because he couldn't do it.
What a segue into
It is.
Good.
It is. Some things are just things, just stuff, accumulations, and other things are precious. And looking with eyes of distinction on those things that are precious and truly lasting in the hearts and lives of others, that's really something of value that we should be pursuing.